the President has a statement to the people of Zimbabwe and the world, and he will address you now. Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you for coming on a Saturday, which is a very difficult day, but nevertheless you have managed to come. I want to appreciate. I also want to take this opportunity to just appreciate the members of the leadership from the standing committee who have managed to make it at such a short notice, and also our colleagues in the alliance. Some of them couldn't make it on account of time, but be that as it may, I also want to appreciate our gratitude to our members of the National Executive here present. We are meeting at a very crucial moment in the history of our country. As you are aware, and as you may know, we have just had the court decision, which was handed down yesterday. You are aware that we are sticklers to rule of law, sticklers to constitutionalism, and also sticklers to democratic practice. And for that account, we felt that we needed to exhaust all the available constitutional remedies within the confines and dictates of peace. That we did. It's clear that the legal route has led us to a dead end in the context of the result that has come out of that court, that result which does not, in our view, accord with a legitimate and credible case that we did put before the court. Needless to say, ladies and gentlemen, I want to reconfirm and confirm our position that yes, we respect the court, the Constitutional Court, but not only because it is a court that is expected by all of us who are law-abiding to respect issues of law and constitutionalism, but also as myself being concerned, I am an officer of court, and being an officer of court, I'm alive to my professional court, which is to respect the views and decisions of the court. But it is also important for me to note that in understanding that the respecting of the decisions of the Constitutional Court do not by definition mean accepting it. You can respect but not agreeing with the Constitutional Court. And I respectively disagree and reject the position that was arrived at by the Constitutional Court. As you are aware, it doesn't mean that the Constitutional Court is an infallible institution. They can also make mistakes, just like the mistakes that were made by ZEC. And we have every right in a constitutional democracy that once a decision has been made, citizens do have the right to freely criticize a decision in keeping with the right to freedom of expression and also respecting the cornerstone of our Bill of Rights. I must say that President Chamisa, who is here present, does respect the Constitutional Court, but he has problems with the findings of the Constitutional Court. When Chief Justice Malawa himself noted the essential point yesterday that it is not the duty of the Constitutional Court to confer legitimacy on any particular candidate or on any particular election. The duty of the Constitutional Court is to declare legality or otherwise, which is what they did. But of course, in that context, I have already pronounced myself. I must also indicate that for ourselves to make this position very clear, it is with the full understanding that the Constitutional Court can't tell us that today is a Sunday. If they were to say so, we would respectfully differ with them and tell them that as a matter of fact, today is a Saturday. In as much as we respect that you are a Constitutional Court, you are telling us that today is a Sunday when in fact it is a Saturday. So for us, yes, the judgment has been made, but as citizens, we have every right to scrutinize and of course indicate our view. As far as we are concerned, we have a view that is contrary to the view that has been taken by the Constitutional Court. Now, some of you may then ask, what then does it say to where we are going? We are so clear that legitimacy can never be conferred in a court of law. Legitimacy is a function and a creature of the will of the people. Legitimacy is a creature and a function of the people voting. The people voted in this country. From our tally, and that tally we insist on it, because we had asked the Constitutional Court to issue a subpoena, which we had already prepared, but it was tendered. That subpoena was going to indicate why we continue to emphasize that we got 2.6 million votes and President Mnangagwa got less than 2 million votes. We have those specifics and we are ready to then distribute them at the appropriate time. This information is available. It was part of our subpoena, and that's why we wanted to subpoena the Constitutional Court Commission, the commissioners of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, to come and then justify that issue. So the issue of legitimacy is a fundamental issue. It has not been dealt with. It will not be dealt with. It has to be dealt with. That's the first point. The second point is obviously issues around where we felt that certain information was not taken and given due regard. We would have expected ZEC to be quizzed by the Constitutional Court on certain of the anomalies, announcing 3 different results. That cannot be condoned. We would have expected the Constitutional Court to also delve into matters of the credibility of our messages around the issue of the subpoena, because the subpoena is actually primary evidence. And also to be confused by the court. As you know, in the timber case, this party, the MDC, went to the court and requested our courts to reopen the residual material. It was clearly ruled that in a harmonized election, you can't ask the court to open ballot boxes. And we respected it. Even in our own recent matter, where Chimin is a candidate in one of the constituencies in Mutasa South, they've also said that we can't open the ballot boxes for a recount. But the same court also says that you were supposed to go back and ask for the ballot boxes to be reopened. But why should the ballot boxes be reopened for things that we do not want? We are not going to be able to get the mathematical issues in the ballot box. If anything, it's just a confirmation of the same problem. So why should we do the obvious? If you see somebody who is pregnant, why should you even worry about where they got the pregnancy? The fact is that they are pregnant, and you must start from that so that you are able to move on. It's a fact that does not require any further validation or verification. Now, in terms of going forward, I've heard what has been said by Mr. Mnangagwa, that he accepts the court decision. Yes, he may accept the court decision, but the court decision is not the people's decision. He must be able to look at the reality that the people who voted do not believe in him. Over 50%, even by the disputed facts by ZEC, do not believe in Mr. Mnangagwa. We got a clear majority in the urban areas, in the metropoles. We control over 90%. Last time I was saying it's about 65%, the computation has been done. It's actually 90% of those who contribute the revenue in terms of the taxpayers. So we have to understand the reality we have in this country. We have a disputed election, we have a legitimacy issue, we have a legality issue, we have a constitutional crisis around the election in Zimbabwe. Now I understand that there's an inauguration tomorrow. That does not take away, even if they are going to inaugurate tonight, in the next hour, that does not resolve the issue of legitimacy, which has to be resolved by going back to the people of Zimbabwe and respecting them in terms of their will. What are the fundamental problems we need to resolve? The first problem we must resolve in order for this country to move forward is the return to legitimacy. Let the election be respected. Let the will of the people be respected. I saw even last night, ZANU-PF were trying frantically to try and cause people to celebrate. But they couldn't. They couldn't even celebrate themselves because they know that it's fiction. They did not win this election. The election was won and they know the winner of the election. President Mnangagwa knows who won the election. Vice President Chiwenga is even more convinced on who won the election. Go and ask him. And he must be honest to himself and give the people of Zimbabwe the right to the actual election. So the issue of legitimacy is the first one. The second one is the issue of a credible, free and fair election in Zimbabwe. You must know that President Tsvangirai, who is my predecessor, has had problems with this thing. We thought that with President Tsvangirai having gone, and may his soul rest in peace, with also Mr. Mugabe having exited the political stage, we were going to have a fresh start. But the new actors are having the same old act of disputed elections. Why? Because we have fundamental problems around the independence of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. ZEC is not independent. ZEC is littered with people who are not professional, who are not independent, who are not honest, starting from the ZEC chairperson. They've also shown even their lack of independence and lack of honesty in the revision of the statistics. That's fundamental point. So even in the next 2 days, we have a by-election. In the next 5 years, we have an election. We will come back to square one, where we have disputed elections. Now, we need to move forward and say, let's have fundamental reforms on the second aspect to deal with the issue of disputed elections in Zimbabwe, but respecting the will of the people. Free and fair elections have been an elusive dream for Zimbabweans. A vote must count. When people vote, the vote must count. As it is, the vote does not count. It's not a rule of law, but a rule of man. And that is what we must be able to cure so that we are able to move. The role of the military is very important. We have seen that there has been an undue role of the military in certain of the civilian institutions. That must be sorted out through a process of national engagement. Of course, we have the issue of the national economic crisis. You are aware that people have gone without salaries. Vendors have had problems. We all have problems with cash. I'm told that the dollar has just gone haywire. I'm told it's now almost 90%, in some cases 100%. So the national economic question is a big question, so that we resolve this fundamental issue for our people. Now, how do we do that? We cannot resolve these issues with a disputed leader. President Mnangagwa is disputed as a leader. I have legitimate claim that I am supposed to be leading the people of Zimbabwe. Until we have been able to come together, I know SADC may come, AU may come, but they are coming here to buttress an illegitimacy. They are coming here to simply endorse an unacceptable outcome from the perspective of the people of Zimbabwe. This is not just a Chamisa ED issue. It is the Zimbabwean people issue in terms of free and fair elections. And we want this issue to be resolved in that regard. So I would say, ladies and gentlemen, we are so excited, and I must congratulate the people of Zimbabwe for voting emphatically. I want to thank those who voted for me, over 2.6 million who voted for me. Thank you so much for investing your trust in us. Thank you so much for dreaming with us. Thank you so much for believing in us. This is not the end of the road, but it's beginning. Change is coming, and change is coming. Whether it is delayed is another thing. It cannot be denied. Change will come, and it is going to come sooner than we think. We need to go back to the fundamental issues around dealing with an issue of the disputed electoral result so that we are able to move forward. I also want to thank all those who supported us from an evidentiary point of view, those who were giving independent analysis, Team Pachedu and other institutions that are independent. We want to thank them for the work that they did. I want to thank my colleagues in leadership for their effort. With a zero tillage budget, we managed to conquer mountains. Our silos are now full in the local authorities with all the mayors, over 26 mayors. Our silos are full in parliament. We've managed to increase our number of parliamentarians with all the other ones we are challenging. We hope that we're going to have a significant figure and reduce even the 2/3 majority of ZANU-PF in parliament. With our zero tillage budget, we managed to have 2.6 million votes and win the presidential election. Defeat Mr. Mnangagwa, who had a 400 million budget. According to the former Minister of Finance, I trust his figures. So it's very clear that we did very well, and I want to thank the people of Zimbabwe for that. Hope is what we have, and we are going to win. It's the beginning. Yes, the Constitutional Court route has been shut, which is the legal route. The legal door is not the only door to happiness. It's not the only door to democracy or to freedom. There are many other doors. The political doors are going to be opened very soon. Using our constitution, we have the right to peaceful protest, and we have the right to peacefully demonstrate. We will examine and execute all those available doors so that we are able to open our way to freedom and justice. And that will be done in a very short space of time. In the party, we've said we are meeting as the National Council next week to have a comprehensive analysis of the judgment, but also to have a comprehensive view on where we are going politically. So we want to consult party organs, but I can tell you that victory is certain and victory is coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll take questions straight to time as you always do. Name and organization, please. Yes?
From AFP. Just explain, I'm sorry, I might not be understanding what you mean, but you say that victory is coming and the political doors will be open. Can you be more specific? Because for someone like me who's not from here, it seems as if the inauguration is tomorrow, what else do you do? And what victory? Can you just elaborate?
A false inauguration does not invalidate the correct and truthful inauguration. The people of Zimbabwe are very clear of what they voted for. You can have an inauguration, like I said, in the next hour. It doesn't change the fact that the people voted and that their vote must be respected. So yes, there are political options. Yes, those political options are going to be examined. We have to provide that leadership. And we are ready to provide that leadership for the people. The people are very clear about what I'm talking about because they are the ones who are asking for that leadership. And it will be provided.
1, 2, 3.
Good afternoon, Aldrin Simpier from ENCA. Does the political route also include supporters of the MDC alliance taking to the street? Does it also include you meeting with the ZANU-PF and the President Emerson Mnangagwa to see whether you want to have a government of national unity?
Let me say, we are not just political animals. We are also constitutional animals, legal animals, law-abiding citizens. The same constitution that took us to the Constitutional Court is the same constitution that gives us the right to demonstrate. It's actually a constitutional right, which we have not exercised over the past few days on account of examining and executing the constitutional route. Now that that door is shut, there are many other doors. That Section 59 door of political protest is just one of them. Peaceful protest. We know that there's the temptation by ZANU-PF to come and then start to cause violence when we call for peaceful demonstration. We want to deal with that challenge so that when we go into demonstrations, it is entirely controlled by ourselves. So that will be sorted out. I hope that answers your first question. The second one, in terms of political dialogue, we wrote to President Mnangagwa before the elections because we anticipated the tendency and the disposition to want to cheat when there is rejection. And this is what they've repeated. We didn't want to be where we are right now. That's why we had written to President Mnangagwa before elections to have a political dialogue on the issues. And the issues we raised are the ones that are in dispute right now. We raised the issue of the role of traditional leaders. We raised the issue of a disputed voters' roll. We raised the issue of the independence of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. Nobody doubts that the ZEC Commissioner, Chigumba, and team, most of them are blatantly and brazenly partisan. It's a fact. They may want to refuse it, but they can't even liberate themselves from their parent party. And that issue is also part of the court papers, but we don't want to re-argue our matter. So those issues we had raised continue to rear an ugly head. I've written to President Mnangagwa. He has not responded. The earliest in response I have seen from President Mnangagwa is a tweet handle, which I'm not so sure if it is his, which was saying that my arms are open for Chamisa. I don't know which arms. So I don't want to end up being embarrassed instead of being embraced by arms that I do not know. I requested him to have a meeting. He has not responded. And the meeting is not to discuss anything, but to discuss legitimate issues, to discuss all the disputed issues around free and fair elections, so that the country is able to move forward. There has to be dialogue. There has to be working together. This is why we wrote to SADC. We did not get any response from SADC. We did not get any response from the AU. And we still await that response. I hope President Ramaphosa will also respond to us. He has not responded. President Genkop is the one who is now the static chair of the responsible body. And we are hoping that he will be able to then attend to our issues. But dialogue is a good thing for Zimbabwe. But let it be dialogue on legitimacy, let it be dialogue on the rule of law, dialogue on observing of human rights. Our people are being subjected to abuses. Senior leaders have been dragged to court for no apparent reason. Leaders in the provinces are being persecuted. I, for one, everywhere I go, they have these unmarked cars, and men who are putting on balaclavas. Why they were doing that, I don't know. And they think that perhaps they will intimidate people like myself. But I'm dead already. By merely challenging a dictatorship, you have signed a death warrant. So they can't kill me twice. We are very clear, and we are not going to be intimidated. That's why we are ready for any eventuality. They can't run a country by terror and sustain by terrorism. It's not possible.
Sorry, just a question on national unity. You did not answer that. A government of national unity, is that one of the options?
I thought you were talking about dialogue. I didn't hear you to say.
Yeah, I mentioned national unity. Is that one of the options?
Well, look, we don't want to put the cart before the horse. Like we have said, let it be a national discussion and dialogue on the basis of the truth. But you can't rob me of my goats and then you say, let's share those goats. Let's first have a restitution, each for each, then we can start to talk. Even if you do not have goats, you want to share mine. Let's share them, but on the basis of the truth. Not to take my goats and you say, no, we have equal goats, so we must work together. Fiction and deception is not going to save this country. And this is the message we are having to the international community. We want to thank the international community, in particular the United States of America, for their consistent position on free and fair elections. The European Union for their position on free and fair elections. And other international bodies that have continued to emphasize that we need free and fair elections in this country. We have not seen those free and fair elections. And we hope that they will continue to help the people of Zimbabwe to secure a legitimate outcome, to secure the endorsement of the will of the people.
The next question.
Thank you so much. My name is Osaya Mviringi, an independent media practitioner. I've got a question in 3 parts. The first one I want to...
In 3 parts?
Yes, but it's one question.
Okay.
Yes. That subsection, Roman numerals.
It's all right, no problem. Thank you
So much. I quoted one part where you indicated that legitimacy will only come from the people, by re-engaging the people. My question is, are you suggesting a rerun to this election at all? On what basis? Or is it a feasible option for you, given the remedies that you have pursued so far?
Sure.
Because I understand that once you've been to the Constitutional Court, there is no further legal restitution from there. Question number 2.
Can I answer that one? Then you come to the question number 2.
Okay, sure.
There is a difference between legality and legitimacy. Now, when you want legality, legal issues, legal remedies, you go to court. When you want legitimacy, you go to the people, the court of public opinion. We went to the people, we got that legitimacy, but that legitimacy was not then validated in a court of law. Through the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission and also through the Constitutional Court. So we now have absence of legitimacy, but we have now the decision, which is clearly illegal by Commissioner Chigumba, being clothed with some kind of legality. But that does not resolve the fundamental question of legitimacy. And the only way is to go back to what the people said and what the people want. Even if we were to allow Mr. Mnangagwa to be alone, he cannot be supported because he's not supportable. He has no support of the people of Zimbabwe. It's none. And this is why you see that they are panicking. There's a lot of force at the slightest of people saying we want to congregate even for a prayer meeting. They bring all sorts of weapons and tanks because the guilty are afraid. They run away even when they are not being chased. And that is their problem. It will not go away because we've kept quiet. It can only go away because we've respected the will of the people. And we've gone back to say, what is it that the people want? And we respect it.
The second part of my question is, yes, I still have got one more to go. The second part of my question is about your evidence in court.
Sure.
I remember the previous presser here, I asked you if you have got the evidence, if you have amassed enough evidence that you will present in the court of law to win this petition.
Sure.
And you said you've got enough evidence. But unfortunately, yesterday, the judgment laid it bare that you didn't have a shred of evidence to substantiate and corroborate your case so that you could be granted your wishes. What happened with the evidence that you had gathered so sufficiently to defeat the verdict of the Electoral Commission in court?
Well, I don't seek to re-argue the matter because I can't be my own lawyer. But what I can tell you is that our lawyers have already issued a very detailed statement on the evidence that was before the court. The fact that that evidence was not considered by the court does not mean that there was no evidence. We actually had a war annexure on V11 forms across the whole country, which showed what we wanted to prove. But the problem is that the court came with a view to say, let us just go and reopen the ballot boxes. And we are saying, for what? We will not go your route. We want, this is our matter, this is our case. So we are very clear, the evidence was there. But not only that, the subpoena we wanted to then exhaust all these issues. Why was the subpoena very important? The subpoena was going to give you the real-time loaded results on the ZEC server by ZEC admission. But they did not want that server to be in the court. Why? Which is the primary evidence, by the way. Because they knew that the truth would then be sold. They were punching in information real time. Then after that, when they discovered that there were problems, they then decided to do an Excel spreadsheet where they were now changing figures on account of what. That's why they were taking time, because they were meticulously going back and revising certain information. That was said in court. So this whole thing to say there was no evidence is not correct. There is a letter here of a subpoena, which we had said to the Chief Justice, please issue out a subpoena in terms of the law. And he refused to issue the subpoena. He then comes to court to say that as far as we are concerned, you don't have evidence. But there is the subpoena we wanted to bring their commissioners, to bring this server, so that we would then conclusively deal with this matter.
Thank you.
So evidence is there. Right now, if you go to the record, you will see our V11 forms. It's not correct that we didn't have V11 forms. It's not correct that we didn't have evidence. Even ZEC, by their own admission, they said that they had problems with their own statistics. Why were they not interrogated by the court? If anything, there was only interrogation of our own lawyer, but not all the other lawyers. But we understand. It's their right as a court. But the evidence was there.
Thank you very much. My last part, it is to do with your proposed demonstrations. We know the history of demonstrations in Zimbabwe, and we know how this mass movement of people have been abused by some elements to cause anarchy and destabilize the country. Is this a viable option, Mr. Chamisa, if you are really for nation building?
It is a constitutional option. And very viable. We have done it. We demonstrated almost 3 times. Successively. Without any violence. Without any problem. We just need to put mechanisms to make sure that we don't have people who come and disrupt our programs. But I can tell you, we have every right to demonstrate. You have that right too. It's a constitutional right. If people are not happy, they have every right to demonstrate. So this is going to be the route to be taken. One of them, but many others are going to be pursued at a political level.
I propose one last question, Mr. President.
No, we honor ladies.
In the lady.
My sister must be given, and I see also one more.
Okay. 2.
Yeah.
Okay, 3.
Thank you.
My name is Richard Kiza from Newsday. Yesterday, after the court ruling, there seemed to be 2 different statements. The initial statement from the party suggested the party had accepted the verdict of the court and wanted to kind of move on as it were. Then the second statement, which you seem to amplify now, is to reject, while respecting the court, but then reject its verdict.
I've given you the position of the party. I've given you the position of the party. Whatever you have seen, please kindly disregard. I don't know where it came from. It's something that we're going to obviously sort out to see whose authority, whoever issued the statement, they were issuing that statement. But that position is the correct position I am giving you. There can never be and there will never be another position. That's the only position we have given you.
So you are, just my last part, the President Mnangagwa has indicated on Twitter, like you indicated, that his doors were open, you were open.
But how do I respond to doors on Twitter? How do I? Yeah, I wrote to him. I was expecting a response. He knows where we are headquartered. He knows where we are located. Of course, maybe he doesn't have my direct line. But if he wants it, he can get it. They listen to my phones, meaning to say that they know what I say all the time. He has a way of doing it if he wants to talk to us. And we've said that dialogue has to be on legitimacy, on free and fair elections, so that we don't have a vicious cycle of disputed elections. We want to put a full stop to this thing I told you last time, that in the rural areas, people are not expressing themselves. They are almost in captivity. They are under slavery. We want those people to be liberated. And it has to be a political solution so that we resolve these issues. Issues around the security situation in the country. Each time people vote, it's almost as if they're inviting problems for themselves. Because there is freedom of expression, but there's no freedom after expression. There's freedom to vote, but there's no freedom after a vote. And that is a problem, because at the center of the liberation struggle was one man, one vote, one woman, one vote. It has been negated, and that's why you find people die for simply expressing a view. That is unacceptable. In the rural areas, people's houses get burned, property destroyed on account of expressing themselves. It's un-African. It's undemocratic. It's unacceptable. And this is the issue we must be able to resolve. Because 5 years from now, 20 years from now, we will still have a vicious circle of disputed elections. So we can't have elections where you are reproducing dispute. Every election is a platform for the reproduction of a dispute. That can't be a country. President Tsvangirai left us with this dispute. Mr. Mnangagwa has inherited illegitimacy from Mr. Mugabe, who left being an illegitimate leader. So the cycle continues. It must be broken. The cycle must be broken.
There's a question here.
Marika from AFP again. Just a question. Have you, as the opposition leader, been invited to the inauguration? And if so, will you go?
Well, they know that they can't invite me to a wedding. I was supposed to be the one who was actually receiving the gifts. They know it. That's why they will not even bother, because they know that theirs is a phantom one. But I'm not bothered, because it doesn't matter. It's up to them. I would not go anyway, because you don't go where you know that there's been fraud.
There was another question here.
Sorry, journalist. Mr. President, we've seen the arrest and prosecution of some of your lieutenants, including two of your alliance leaders, President Biti, certainly worries you.
It does. I'm very, very worried. That's why I said dialogue has to be around what I call a continuation of the 38 years, 37 years of what was happening under ZANU-PF. There has not been any new dispensation. Is anything, there's been a new persecution. There's been a new wave of terror. The same act, possibly the same actors. But what has just changed is that the act is now much more refined. They will tell you. No apparent reason why they are dragged to court. Right now in the provinces, in the districts, people are being persecuted, arrested, for no apparent reason. It's a security problem in the country. It does worry me. It will not go away because you have said there's an inauguration. It will go away once we begin to go back to the rule of law. We go back to the democratic tenets, respecting the will of the people. And respecting that diversity is a normal feature. We can't all be the same. But look at how Mr. Biti was arrested. When he was trying to creatively secure himself. He's a great man, you know. I think he must actually act in some movie, you know, Hollywood or Bollywood. I think it will make a very nice character in that movie. Because I saw the video and he was, trying to rescue himself with all these women. We must have a movie there. A powerful movie. But yes, on a serious note, these are serious issues of concern. Very, very serious. Yes, Wanyambavu. Last part. There's always the presidential prerogative, so I have to exercise it. I know that you had said it's enough, but yeah. Sorry?
My point is that very, very possible that. And the next legislation will be for in terms of elections is in 2023.
Sure.
So are you saying to your supporters that the victory you are saying is certain can only be expected at the next election? Or are you pushing for any other?
No, victory can be certain twice. Victory was certain before the election. It was secured during the election. We won. What we are now doing is to protect that victory. So that protection is sure and certain. And it will happen. We will continue to pursue democratic means to make sure that that result is respected. Of this election, not the next one that is to come. We can't afford 5 more years of this kind of hardship. Zimbabweans can't afford these 5 more years of a vacant leadership. Zimbabweans can't afford 5 more years of promises without delivery. There must be answers. Workers need answers. The young people out there who want jobs need answers. Pensioners need answers. Women in the village, in the countryside, they require answers. You journalists also need answers. But those answers are not going to come on account of the reproduction of the past, but a proper alternative. And that's why what is before us is that we will make sure we safeguard and secure our victory, your victory.
That's all, Mr. President. Mr. Putin, the Deputy President of MTC led by...
Don't waste time on that, my brother.
Comment that he now demands 1.8...
you see, we have no time for jokes. That guy is a big joke. Why should we waste time on our joke? This is a serious national matter. And you want to be pursuing side shows by this man, what's his name? Yes. Why do you want to waste time?
Not me, I'm not wasting.
Not you. I'm saying, listening to him. You have better things to do, my brother. Thank you very much. We hope that things will work out. Thank you. God bless you. Okay. Good one. Thanks.
President Chamisa uchiro kuti abantu beZimbabwe banodinga ukusebenzisa amandla abo 59 namanye ama-sections which is ukuthi abantu beZimbabwe banike 5 years